Star Business Solutions 2020 MYOB Greentree webinar. I'd like to welcome you all to today's presentation, and it's good to have so many of you registered to hear what we have to say today. We are recording the webinar, and if you have any difficulties in receiving the visuals or the audio, the video will be made available within 24 hours of the end of the presentation. What we'd like you to do is, if you have any questions, please type them into the question section as you go. That way you won't forget them. If you wait till the end, you'll probably forget what you wanted to know. However, we will not be addressing the questions until the end of the presentation. So we'll get stuck into it. Today we'll be, sorry, slight technical issue. Today we will be covering some MYOB issues as well as STAR issues. The agenda will have Jim Seymour talking about some MYOB insights and a bit of a general update. We'll be talking about the short-term roadmap for Greentree, about Greentree updates. We'll be talking about STAR support, some cool things that we're doing here at STAR and Sneate. We'll talk about Sneate in a minute. Also some cool things that some of our customers are doing, which we found to be quite fascinating. Today's presenters will be Trish Hall, Chief Executive for Star Business Solutions, Jim Seymour, Enterprise Sales Manager for Australia and New Zealand from MYOB, and I'll be the moderator for today's presentation. First off, we're going to have Jim Seymour presenting. So even though he looks quite serious there, believe me that Jim's a great guy to talk to, very approachable, and he's really interested in hearing from you. So bank up those questions for him, please. So without further ado, here's Jim.
Thanks, Norman, and thanks, Trish, and thanks for having me here today. It's one of the first meetings I've actually been able to get out for in quite some weeks, so I'm really, really happy to be here. I thought when Norman asked me if I'd like to be involved, I was thinking about some topics that we could talk through, and I really felt MYOB has gone through such an interesting time in the last 12 months as an organisation in the business, so I thought it was worthwhile touching on that, and of course, how MYOB reacted to COVID-19 and what we've seen, especially from the data and the insights that we're able to gather from our broader customer base, I thought would be interesting to share with everyone today. So I wanted to share a little bit about MYOB's last 12 months. It's been a massive period of change for MYOB. As I said, aside from COVID-19, just on 12 months ago, KKR acquired us for approximately $2.3 billion, and MYOB re-entered the world of private equity ownership. Hot on the heels of that, we experienced a substantial change in business leadership from CEO through to a large number of our executive. And hot on the heels of that, of course, now we've gone through a comprehensive change to our operating model. And just as those things were getting moving, COVID-19 struck. So it's fair to say, as an organisation, MYOB have been living through a lot of activity for what seems like a particularly extended period of time now. Having said that, I've never been more confident that MYOB is actually extremely well placed to live up to the promise of being a leading tech company in our region, delivering innovative and timely solutions and enabling the digitisation of business in Australia and New Zealand, which we'll talk a little more about shortly. So change of ownership, leadership and operating model topped off by COVID-19. What's really interesting is that we've seen solid sales outputs and product take up throughout the COVID period. In fact, quite amazingly, in our enterprise vertical, we're in growth versus the same period, 2019, for our online solutions specifically. Like many businesses, we're seeing what we believe is almost a generational opportunity as SMEs accelerate the take-up of online and digital solutions. Before we look at our first slide here, I wanted to put into context our purpose at MYOB, and it's something that we take quite seriously in our role within business. We help more Australian and New Zealand businesses start, survive, and succeed. The first slide I'm sharing with you here looks through a lens of businesses starting. Since COVID-19 started, we're seeing ABN registrations falling. ABN registrations are an important indicator as they're a sign of health in the economy, and unsurprisingly, the number of business registrations show month-on-month decline. We believe this will stay flat and even more and move even further down in the next quarter as we believe it's not just a COVID issue, but an economic issue that will remain with us for a number of quarters yet. Looking at how our businesses are surviving, again, if we look here at ABN cancellation rates, particularly the delta between March and April, that's a very large concern for the economies of Australia and New Zealand. And while excellent stimulus packages and policies have been made available to business in Australia and New Zealand, we know that they can't continue forever due to the sheer cost and scale of them. So we're watching with interest the post-September review. The best advice we have today is that stimulus won't be withdrawn, but certainly stands to be modified. Therefore, we do expect ABN cancellations to continue well above historical rates throughout Q4 and into Q1 and Q2 2021. The sentiment on the right, again, not surprisingly, shows between 74% and 66% in either a very concerned or quite concerned state. On the back of that, we expect the economy to bifurcate or split between a limited number of verticals that grow aggressively and those that are either stagnant or even disappear permanently from market. If we now look at how well our customers are succeeding, we've picked invoice creation as the indicator. And we've picked invoice creation because it's the best surrogate that we have to measure business operations and cash flow. You can see the negative growth against baseline, 32% down in AU and 50% down in NZ. Looking at the chart on the right around sentiment toward revenue, there's 30% or more respondents reporting a decline in revenue and only 7% anticipating growth. The slide highlights the stimulus package numbers, which, as we've said earlier, has provided great support to businesses, but will not last forever. We can see that just on $1 billion was received by AU SMEs by 17th of May, paid to approximately 75,000 businesses. The bottom line of the data on this slide really points to a lot of companies being paid a material amount. As a side reference, a report tabled by the CommBank, if we took the current unemployment rate in this country and added JobKeeper beneficiaries, the real rate would be closer to 58%. In addition, CommBank stated in May that 70% of all deposits received into customers' bank accounts were coming from federal government, which gives you just a sense of the size and scale of support going into the industry. Economically, no doubt, it will be difficult for governments and companies to manage through. Many considered we were in an unsustainable debt cycle even before COVID. COVID's placed a major demand suppressant on the economy, and we don't expect to fast in, fast out. Rather, it's probably more like an L on its side and fast in and slow out. This graph is interesting. It clearly shows us that the focus from governments and businesses moving forward will be around things such as preservation of cash, supply chain diversification, particularly in relation to relying on China in the same way that many businesses have done in the past. And in fact, a shift back to local manufacturing and nearshoring or even onshoring, and including onshoring of resources. In terms of the social impacts, we expect SMEs to make remote working the new normal, business travel and events to materially change, and there's now been what we believe are permanent changes to how products and services are consumed and delivered to Australian households. However, as an indicator of the opportunity that exists moving forward, you may have seen or read recently a direct quote from Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, from their quarterly results, where they have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. And what they mean by that is simply a massive take-up of digital solutions in that time. So what could we expect next? Well, firstly, we're telling our people that human change will remain very high, and those that might ask us when will this change stop, our response is unfortunately never. And in fact, we believe will increase in frequency and quantum. We know that despite major shocks from events such as Great Depression, Spanish flu, SARS, civilization prevails. However, as a result of those shocks, we've seen material changes to the structure and makeup of economies. And we fully expect the digitisation of our economy now to accelerate. Consumers have taken with great gusto remote buying and remote working, and will form 3 key changes we expect to remain in place going forward. And in fact, over the next 20 years, we expect ourselves as individuals to live in times of the largest and most constant change that civilization has come across. And for all of us, our ability to deal with that change will be a very important discipline personally and as business leaders or managers. Areas such as quantum computing, AI, cryptocurrency, robotics, genetic engineering, we believe will all be rapidly accelerated. Digital businesses, we know, innovate faster, get paid quicker, are more likely to export, and are better positioned to raise capital. I'll sort of round this out with saying that MYOB, we're extremely well positioned to help businesses of many shapes and sizes in Australia and New Zealand start, survive, and succeed. MYOB has tremendous scale in our business. We have intelligence in our data. Our applications and solutions are essential service for business. We have no global or supply chain trade risks. Our teams live here. We're not encumbered by trying to support multiple geographies globally. We are and remain committed to Australia and New Zealand businesses.
Okay, thanks for that, Jim. It was interesting to hear all of that. Just like to point out, haven't seen any questions for Jim yet, and he's chafing at the bit to answer questions at the end. So please remember to type in your questions as we go. Our next presenter is Trish Hall, Star's CEO. Most of you have either met her or know who she is. If you don't know Trish or haven't met her, when the opportunity arises, please introduce yourself. So without further ado, here's Trish.
Thanks, Norman. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you and your staff and your colleagues for helping us help you over the last 3 months. The last 3 months we have been working from home, and it's amazing how much our staff and then our clients like yourselves, staff, have adapted to working from home and doing the activities that you do and interacting with us. We have now do a lot, we've always done support remotely, but we're now doing lots and lots of Teams and Zoom meetings to either just do support, do training, workshops, and so on. And as it shows that how much that's come forward. For example, one of our staff last week spent a whole day on Teams training about 10 staff, and the feedback was it all went very well. They've just got very used to using, the videos, making sure they put up their hands and so on. So yes, I'd like to thank you for all your assistance helping us help you. So a couple of topics that we're going to go through today, and one is the MYOB roadmap. A formal document is being prepared and it will be released in the next couple of weeks. So when we get that, we will be sending that on to our clients and showing you where MYOB are going with Greentree, what the next lot of activities are, and a little bit about where MYOB see Greentree going into the future as well. Some highlights of what's happening over the next 6 to 12 months. One of the major things is that the underlying Greentree database, being Jade, is going to be upgraded to a latest version. So that's quite a large piece of work that MYOB are being engaged in at the minute, and I'll get back to that when we're talking about the upgrades coming up. For those that are using eDocs or have seen some of our webinars on eDocs, there's also going to be eDocs sales orders being implemented as well. So that will allow you, if you've got sales orders coming in from your external clients, to have them come in via email and then be processed through into Greentree automatically for you to then fill in the rest of the details. Another major piece of work, and we're all very familiar now with single touch payroll, and you will know that that is now how the ATO and the government are now seeing what the actual impact of JobKeeper and so on is single touch payroll. There is a new phase coming up with that, not this year, but will be required from 1st of July next year. So that's another piece of major work that MYOB are undergoing. Another one which will be great for many of our customers is bank feeds. Many of the software packages nowadays, and including, for example, MYOB AccountWrite, has bank feeds. So Greentree, going into the future, will also have that feature as well. It's a little way out, but what that means is that you don't have to go and log into your banking software every day. Effectively, with your permission, obviously, the bank statements will come down and be automatically come into Greentree, and then you can just fill in the information of those transactions that Greentree isn't aware of. As well, and as happens with every release, the roadmap is also going to include what is generally called ideas, coming through the ideas portal of popular items that have been submitted by clients like yourselves and resellers. So in terms of the upcoming versions and the upgrade path for you, in 2020 there is going to be at least 5, if not 6 releases. That's a few more than what there usually is. The reasons for these relate somewhat to New Zealand, which doesn't impact us, but there's been some very substantial compliance changes that MYOB have had to do in relation to the New Zealand Holiday Act. But also the other reason is that upgrade to the latest version of Jade. The current release is 20.2.0. Some of you are already on that version. Some of you are yet to go on to that version. There has been no upgrade required, like there often is at this time of year or just before this, to meet ATO compliance and changes in the tax rules. Because that hasn't been required, we haven't advised you of needing to upgrade, but you would have, for those that have payroll, you would have received in the last couple of weeks the new tax rates and so on. We've had lots of communications with your staff over the last week or so, particularly in terms of getting those tax rates and so on updated. Interestingly, there's not been a lot of changes in tax rates either. So in terms of the next release schedule, the next release is due in in July, so now in the next couple of weeks. The following release after that, which is 2020.4, is the release for that Jade upgrade that I was mentioning. And the following one after that will be the September release for that, which principally is the eDoc sales orders, but we'll have other items. So in terms of when you might upgrade, we are recommending that you upgrade between now or before the end of or before the 2020.4 release, because that one will be quite a large release, and we're anticipating that that will take some time to process. When I say process, I don't mean us hitting the buttons, but just an amount of time to actually Greentree and Jade to run through the actual upgrade process. So in order to minimise that time, we are recommending that you upgrade to the current or the next release now, and then subsequently upgrade to the new Jade release when that comes in a little bit later later this year. Next year, unlike this year, if you do have payroll, you will be required to do an upgrade in May, June, as we have done in many years in the past. So you will be compliant with the next single touch payroll release. So effectively, you may do perhaps 2 or 3 upgrades in the next 12 months, but it will keep you up to date and make sure that you're not having to have a lot of downtime with that upgrade process happening. Please contact your primary consultant. If you want to chat about the upgrades and when best to do it for you, you will be receiving emails and so on about this as well as the months continue. Okay, so the next I'd like to chat about is accessing staff support. So over the last couple of years, the means by which you can access support has changed. It does not by any means mean that you cannot call our head office or call your consultant and ask for help. And by all means, certainly if it's an important issue, a critical one, a payroll one, for example, please feel free to pick up the phone and ask for support or call your primary consultant. Notwithstanding that many of our consultants or all our consultants have been working from home, all the normal mechanisms are working, as in you can call the head office, and then that call is going to be go through to the consultant at wherever they're sitting at their desk at home, maybe in their pajamas. Hopefully not. But otherwise than making that phone call, we do have a support portal. So many of you have started to use that portal, but I'll chat a bit further about that shortly. One of the ways you can access the portal is actually logging in, but you can also just simply send an email to support@star.cd, and automatically that email will be created as what we call a ticket in our support portal, and you will receive an email introducing the portal to you and with a link through to the portal and with details of your support call. Using the support portal, you can see what current issues you have out there. You can correspond with our consultants who are dealing with the individual support calls, add extra details, screenshots, Excel spreadsheets and so on, as you would normally do to an email, but it will allow you to see what's going on. We also have escalations in place, so depending on the severity of the support call you're putting in, various emails get produced, and in fact if things don't happen as in a timely fashion, I'm the one that gets the email, and I will certainly make sure it's dealt with. So in terms of accessing the support, if you go to our normal website, our Star Business Solutions website, up in the top right hand corner you will see that there's a support option. So you can simply go to there to get to our support portal. Alternatively, as you'll see in the PowerPoint, there's a direct address there, and that will come up with sorry, Norman, it's just popping over to the screen. It will come up with this with a login to our support portal. When you can log in, if you've already logged in before, you can log in, or you can simply sign up for an account. Now, our suggestion is that perhaps it's not all your staff that use Greentree that you allow them to do this. The reason for that is, whilst we love to do support for you and we love to help all your staff, obviously there is a cost of doing that. So what we typically say is that support login should be given to a couple of people. And then those people do a triage, if you like, before they actually log the support call, to make sure that it can't be that your question can't be answered internally before they come to us. But absolutely, that's up to you whether you give these details out to all your staff or just a selected few. So to sign up for an account, I can just hit the button sign up for an account, and obviously Norman's already got one, but I'm actually going to sign up Jim here just because I can.
And we might be able to charge him for support.
Yeah, hopefully I think I've got this right, Jim. Yeah, is that right?
That's the one.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And yeah, I'll do one. So I'm just going to sign Jim up here. He didn't know I was going to do this, so he's looking very surprised, but it'll be amusing when he gets. So I can just go sign up, and that will then give him a login. And he can now start accessing our support portal. In your instance, of course, we've got to go to MYOB, the Greentree support portal, and you can do a number of things there. Obviously, general support, payroll support, licensing questions, and so on. Of course, the last one being site down, that's one of those, the ones that immediately get a critical priority on them, and various things happen back here at STAR to make sure that it gets dealt with very, very quickly. Once you've logged a support call, if I just go to here, then as you log in, you can see, you can put what I want help with, any details, add any screenshots, as I've mentioned. They're always very helpful. Any logs that we may have, spreadsheets or whatever, that may convey as much of the information that you can in relation to your request. In addition, once you have your support portal and so on up and running, you can go to requests, and it will show you your requests or requests for your company. So you can see requests, not just your requests, but others in your business can see the open support calls that you might have out there, what their status is, and so on. Note that you don't have to keep this portal open all the time. As updates happen to the calls that you've got logged, you will receive an email as well, and it will have a link straight through to the portal here. So please feel free to create a login if you haven't already done so, and start getting your requests and so on into there. It does, as I said, doesn't preclude you calling up as well, and also just emailing support at star.cd, because that email will automatically create these requests for you. Okay, Norman mentioned Sneate in the introduction. So Sneate, by the way, doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a name that we thought sounded really cool and neat. So it's now what is our application company. So we are developing, and have always developed, some standard Greentree modules, and so we've now put a name around that called Sneate. So I'm now going to chat about just a couple of these items that we've developed. You may have already heard of these or seen some of them in our webinar, but we'll continue developing more of these, and I have got a new one to announce today as well. So one of them is email approvals. So a couple of years ago, whilst Greentree has a great approvals and alerts engine, and it can email approvals, or let your staff know that there's approvals for them to go through and approve. That approval had to happen either within Greentree itself or on the web. A number of our clients had mentioned to us that, one, they don't want some of their users or their staff logging into Greentree, and they often weren't accessing the web. So they wanted another a mechanism by which they could do approvals very, very quickly. So STAR developed email approvals. So with email approvals, and it's set up in the normal way, your approval mechanisms, your escalations and so on can be set up in the normal way using Greentree's approval and alerts engine. With approvals and alerts, what email approvals then adds to is it will actually send the specific user an email. And this is an example of one such email. So it can have information about what they need to approve. It can have an attachment of what they're going to be, they need to approve as well. So they're not just looking at some words on an email, but they can actually open up the PDF and see what they're looking to approve. And they can just then hit a button saying approve or reject. And that will then route back through into Greentree, and if it's hopefully approved, then that will then approve the document. Might be an invoice, might be a purchase order, and so on, and it can continue through its normal workflow process within Greentree. If it is a rejected, then again with that a note with why it was rejected, that then feeds into Greentree, and the normal rejection type processes can take place. So approvers don't need to even, go into Greentree. They don't need to go onto the web to do any approvals. It can be completely outside Greentree, but Greentree will still maintain the whole audit trail of who's approved, when they've approved, if they're rejected and the reason, and so on. So you can still have that audit trail for your auditors or internally to say, well, who approved, when they approved, and so on. Another aspect that we're working on, and in these what we call on-site modules, will expand over time as well. So our first one is purchase orders. So with on-site purchase orders, you have your staff have the ability to enter in purchase orders over the web, and as you can see, that is could be through an iPad or their laptop or whatever, but also over their phone, and enter in purchase orders as if they were actually entering them into Greentree themselves. And these purchase orders, once they're submitted and saved, will automatically be in Greentree, and then can start the whole process, for example, with purchase orders, going through an approval process and so on in those purchase orders as well. The users will be able to see what the status of that purchase order is in their phone or on the web as well. So rather than the users having to again, go in and have that purchase orders entered into Greentree itself, it will be able to straight through onto their web page, and off they go from there. So the clients that are using this are ones that have their users and perhaps service people and so on out and about, and they need to quickly put in a purchase order. It might be to get a piece of equipment, go to Officeworks or whatever, and put in a purchase order, get that through so they can keep on with their normal activity throughout the day. Thank you. The last one I'm just introducing today is a new one that we've just finished, which is what we're calling advanced fixed assets. So this, where advanced fixed assets comes into play, is we have a number of our clients that have a large number of assets, and many of those assets are under a hire purchase agreement. And typically and historically, they have had to do a lot of manual work to then go through and, from an accounting perspective, process transactions to register that the liability is in existence, and then as the payments are made each month or each quarter, then reduce that liability and have the interest calculated and so on. So with Sneate Advanced Fixed Assets, you'll be able to set up a contract against a particular asset. It will be linked to the your fixed asset in your fixed asset module. Set up what finance company those particular assets are relating to, when's the first instalment due, what the interest rate and so on is based on your contract, and then the system will create a schedule of month by month how the split of that principal is going to be or your payment between principal and interest, and will also process all those transactions for you as well. So we have found that with the clients that have gone on to this already, that they're saving a number of hours each month, because typically they had to have that through spreadsheets and so on, and then upload those spreadsheets, or have standing journals for those and have to change those within Greentree each month. So this is doing that whole piece of work for them. So if you have a number of fixed assets that are on HPs, please let us know, and we'll be happy to give you a demonstration of this new application, and hopefully you'll be able to find that that will save you a lot of time each month. So over the last few months, like all of us, and as Jim has indicated, this is not just our clients, but MYOB's clients in all their applications, including Greentree. We've seen some very substantial changes in some of the ways our clients are doing business, not just doing business remotely, but how they have then adapted their businesses to the current environment. So one of our clients, it's a client called Gecko. They are just in one of the Bendigo Ballarat area. They were doing typically mining equipment, but they've pivoted part of their business now and are now actually making ventilators. So they are helping Australia, and in fact I believe New Zealand as well, get the number of ventilators that are out there in hospitals and so on up to meet the demand. So that's been a huge change for them, but it's and it means also undergoing some changes in relation to their IS, their quality assurance and so on, but they're coming up and getting up to speed very quickly and making ventilators. Another one of our clients is making the protection screens. So if you go into a Kmart, a Coles or Woolworths, it may be that those screens have been now made by one of our clients. Lastly, another one is been making many of the test kits. So if you have had your test for COVID-19, it may have been with one of the kits that one of our clients has put together. And all of these three have been a complete change to their current business model. They may have had some of those machines and so on available to them, and have just pivoted to using those machines quite differently, or in fact have invested a lot of money in those new machinery and so on, and staff and knowledge to be able to adapt to the situation. As many of you realise, and I'm sure there's a few of you on the call today, a number of our clients are not-for-profits, and certainly many of our not-for-profits have had a huge increase in the number of calls and support that they are doing to people in the community, and they've seen a substantial rise as the need for assistance for whether that's just basic living needs, food and so on, has come about, but also providing support from a web point of view, being able to order products online and so on. So it's been great to see that some of our clients are doing very well in this time, but we have obviously seen quite the converse as well. And as a business, we are doing what we can to help those clients still keep, and MYOB doing the same, keeping those clients moving along.
Okay, thanks for that, Trish, and also Jim. Hopefully you have found today's webinar interesting, It was a little deviation from what we normally do, where we talk about functionality and give demonstrations and that, but we thought it appropriate to take a little different tack today. Now, some questions and answers. I've got a couple that have come through for Jim and a few for Trish as well, so let's look at them. For Jim, what percentage of your staff do you believe will be returning to your office full time?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. We've surveyed our people a number of times now, the start, during, and more recently, within the last 2 weeks. We've had something like 93% of our workforce indicate that they were fundamentally happy to remain working remotely. We were fairly fortunate in that we were reasonably enabled from a remote working capability point of view pre-COVID, as you might imagine. So it's a really interesting question. We've seen companies like AMP. I'm not sure whether they've announced that for just ANZ or it's broader than that, but AMP have announced that they are going to 100% remotely deployed workforce, handing back their leases in major cities. So it's a very interesting trend. I'm not quite sure, but it won't be the same as it was before. I don't believe we'll need the same real estate footprint that we've needed historically.
Okay, another one for Jim, staff related. Has MYOB experienced staff reductions or stand-downs as a result of COVID?
No. We have been quite fortunate, I think, that a lot of our services and solutions have been taken up with quite positive levels of growth, actually, especially around the online piece, as I mentioned before. So what we have done, we've certainly looked at costs in running our business and made sure that we've probably been a bit more conservative around areas like marketing and other. Certainly travel costs have come down immeasurably, which has helped. But no, we've been quite lucky in that respect.
Okay. One for Trish now. How much does the V3 upgrade cost?
So then, the next upgrade, the upgrades, we do a quote for each upgrade. It really depends on each client's circumstance, and the reason for that is that many of our clients have customizations and they have to be upgraded. So for the person who asks that, if you contact your primary consultant, they will prepare a quote and send that out to you. So typically, and again, that quote depends on whether you want to do a test upgrade or not. We do recommend that you do a test upgrade and go through some testing yourselves, particularly around those customizations, but ultimately it's up to yourselves. So please contact your primary consultant and they will do a quote for you.
Another one for Trish. Do I need to have a support portal login to send an email to support@star.cd?
No, you can send your email to support@star.cd, and behind the scenes, it will automatically create a login for you, and you will be sent an email with then a link to the ticket that the system has created for that email. So that's a great way to get started on the portal, so you don't have to actually log in yourself. You can actually just send an email to support@star.cd, and it will create a login for you. And then obviously you'll have to put in a password.
Okay. What types of POs can I enter through the online app you spoke about?
You can enter in ones that are related to inventory, just GL lines, job lines, and so pretty much any purchase order that you could enter in through Greentree itself can be entered in through the online application as well.
Okay. Does the online require internet access?
The answer to that is yes. We have it's not an offline remote app. It is something that requires the internet. But We did and have over the years done a few surveys of various of our clients and prospects, and the reality is in most instances, most of our client staff do have access to the internet on their phone, on their iPad or tablet and so on, so they can bash out their purchase orders that way.
Okay. One for Jim here. What's been the reaction from KKR to COVID and all of this, given that they've got global interests and Australia is just a small part of their overall business?
A small but very important part. Yeah. Clearly, KKR have got exposure to not just hotel chains, but airlines. The comment that I've heard that's come through is MYOB is probably the least of their concerns globally. What is of interest, though, they haven't clearly stopped spending money, though. We look at last week's announcement that Bain has stepped in to acquire Virgin. Bain tied up with KKR. There's an interest. KKR have an interest in Bain. So clearly, money is still being spent on what's deemed as good assets. So yeah, we are the least of their concerns. We understand.
Okay. This one's from Barbara. I think she's meaning, is fixed assets within Greentree?
So standard Greentree has fixed assets. Our advanced fixed assets, yes, is within Greentree. It looks, and I showed the screenshot, so the menu options and so on are all within Greentree, so you're not logging into a different application. Once you've purchased that module and it's been applied to your system, it will, or the menu options and so on will be shown in Greentree itself, and it will link through to your normal fixed assets.
Okay. Will the fixed asset app for loan contracts be available with either upgrade this year?
Yes, it will, but it is a separate module, and you will have to purchase that module. So again, if you are interested in having a look at advanced fixed assets, please contact your primary consultant, and they can organise a demonstration for you, and then organise a quote for the piece of software itself, but also the implementation of it.
Okay. Now a question from Sandy. Hello, Sandy. Haven't spoken to you for quite a while. What is required to implement the email approval process?
Great. So Sandy, part of that is what approvals you actually want to go through and do. So, and the example I had on the screen was purchase orders, but it could be AP invoices or whatever. So in essence, it's really the setup of the email approvals itself, and it uses the standard approvals and alerts engine that Greentree has. There is some technical things in terms of email addresses and so on, and getting that all going backwards and forwards. So it generally needs a little bit of input from your IT team. The other major thing just that will influence the setup is that, as I mentioned, the email will come through with an attachment. And so for a purchase order, for example, in order for approve the purchase order, they generally like to see what the purchase order would look like. So that PDF is actually a report that either our consultants can do, or you can yourselves can do using the Greentree report writer, and that can be then attached. If it's an AP invoice, for example, you may have just the attachment of the invoice itself. So typically it's say a couple of days work, but it does depend on whether you've got the approvals and alerts set up in Greentree itself already. But if you have that, then it's probably a day or two's work.
Okay, good. Got a few questions coming through now, which is great. Can users have visibility through Sneate to view POs entered directly into Greentree, like POs generated from standing orders?
Yes, it does depend. We do have some security around those types of purchase orders because typically those that have been using the purchase orders are wanting to see just their own orders, or we use the Greentree security to be able to show what orders can be seen or not. So it would depend on the security and the particular user set logging in.
Okay. With the Sneate PO app, if the system is set to auto-create PO numbers, does this flow through to the app?
Correct. So if the PO numbers are set to automatic, then it will automatically then just assign a PO as that purchase order is saved. Was that Alan?
Yeah, Alan Avery.
Hi, Alan. It's Trish.
Sorry, it's a small world sometimes. Nice to know, Barbara, that you'll be talking to Dean about setting up the leasing stuff. Next question, what would be attached to the email approval so that the approver knows what they are approving? So
that's what I was just mentioning. You can pretty much attach anything. So it could be the actual scanned AP invoice if that's what the user is needing to approve, or it could be a report that shows what the purchase order would look like that might be sent out as it is, be sent out to the supplier. Or particularly if you're doing, say, purchase orders for general ledger lines, the PO document that you send out to the approver might actually have the general ledger account code, so that the approver knows exactly where that's going to go and if it's going to their particular department or division or whatever. And that's typically not, that sort of information is typically not shown on the purchase order that's sent out to the supplier. So it doesn't have to look exactly like the purchase order that would be sent out.
Okay. That looks like all the questions we've got. So last chance for any more questions before we wrap up today's presentation. Take advantage of Jim being here. You can ask him about anything, and I'm sure he'll give you an appropriate answer. Nope, no more questions. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Trish and Jim for coming to today's webinar. We hope to get back into our normal schedule fairly shortly, where we talk about functionality of Greentree and various other topics that are of interest to you. If you think of any questions after the webinar, please feel free to email them to me, and I'll arrange for either Trish or Jim to get back to you. If you have got any specific questions about functionality, use, or whatever, please feel free to email your consultant directly, and I'm sure they will be able to assist you. As I mentioned, a recording of this will be available to you within 24 hours. Those that have attended will probably receive it earlier than those that registered but were unable to make it today. And we'll also be putting a copy of it on the STAR YouTube page sometime within the next week. So once again, thank you very much and have a safe and productive day.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.